Hi Stampers, it's Lisa. Welcome to our Thursday Live where we are doing Stamping Made Simple. And today we are doing an emboss resist technique. And I know you're going, that's not simple. Well, today it is because we're going to be using some Irresistible Designs Designer Series paper, which already has the heat embossing on it. It's like pre-done into the Designer Series paper. Normally we would get out our Versamark and embossing buddy and some powder and heat it up with the heat tool, all that stuff. We don't have to do. Stampin' Up! Has already done it for us. And so we're going to create this really simple, fun fold card and some emboss resist with our blending brushes using that paper. So I'm excited to show you how it's done. Oops, need this one. So here we are down on my desk. Welcome everyone. This is the card we are making, and it starts out with the Irresistible Designs paper. This is one of the packets from my paper share that I do each time we have a new catalog. And so in here I have 6x6 sheets of this Designer Series paper. So there's 3 different patterns, and we're going to be using 2 of those. And I already cut them down into the strips. You could go ahead and emboss resist the entire thing and then cut it up into strips, but I wasn't sure what else I was going to use this on. So I have those already in little strips. So I have 2 of the flower and 2 of the leaves. And these are 1 1/8 by 3 3/4. And there's 2 of each of those. And then I've got a 1/2 inch by 3 3/4 just to go on the inside. We're starting out with a Petunia Pop card base, and so I have that here. So this is 11 inches by 4 1/4, and I've scored it at 2 3/4 and 5 1/2. And so the first one we're going to make into a mountain, which means I'm going to bend it that way, and then this one's going to be a valley. And I'm going to go ahead and burnish those with the bone folder. Now, because Stampin' Up! Paper is, our regular cardstock is colored all the way through, you don't really need to worry about which direction you're scoring. But if you happen to be using our two-tone cardstock, that has a white core. And if you want to use it as a base, it's a little thinner. I don't always recommend it, but you would score it, and then if you pushed in that way, then you would flip it this way. So you turn the valley into a mountain. If the bump back here, you're going to turn that into a valley. So it's the opposite direction because you're breaking down the fibers. And it's more important when you have that white core. I saw somebody the other day who was worried that it was cracking right there where it was scored, and that's kind of the way to fix that. If that doesn't fix it, you might want to mist it with a little bit of plain water using one of our misters. This is a really fine spray of water that would just soften it just enough that it'll allow those fibers to bend without cracking. Yeah, this Petunia Pop is kind of a purplish pink. It's yeah, it's really pretty. And then I'm going to layer onto that a layer that is 4 inches by 5 1/4 in basic gray with a basic white going over that is 5 1/4 by 3 3/4. Now I have an additional 5 1/4 by 4 for the outside, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this on here as if It was a standard layer going across the entire front of the card, even though the card is going to open up in a little bit of a Z fold. So just a fun little extra touch that's not hard to do, but is going to give a little bit of a wow factor. And then I have a piece of the Petunia Pop ribbon we're going to put behind our focal point, which was made using a punch. And you could do this with any shape you wanted. You could be using circles, ovals, you know, whatever you have. If you have dies, you could even be using labels out of dies. But I chose to use a punch because we are working on simple cards today. And then I just used that one punch, and we're going to be able to do that matting and have it look like it's coming from behind by just cutting this in half. And then we're going to glue it onto the back with a little bit of the color popping out. Okay, so let's go ahead and just, like I like to do, get some of our pieces out of the way. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and just put some adhesive on the front. I'm using a little more than normal because it's going to get some movement. Normally I wouldn't use that much, but because people are going to tug on this one, I want to be sure it's not going to move. And then we also have the one on the inside. And here's where I can go with a little less adhesive. And so it looks like there's not much there, but it's so strong, it's going to go ahead and stick, and it's not going to pop off. I have so many people tell me that they're saving money by buying this crummy adhesive at the big box stores, but you need to use so much of it in order to get it to stick. I don't see how you're saving money. I really don't. And then I've also seen them come apart after a while. Stampin' Seal is not going to do that. And then we also have our liquid glue if you prefer that. I use that often when I have little skinny borders. And then if you wanted, you could also use the My Sweet Petunia glue press. This gets a really super fine layer of glue, which is great for little pieces. And it's great for people with arthritis because it's not very hard to pull on the trigger for it. Okay, let's go ahead and do that Emboss Resist. And what that means is when we color this, the part that has that clear embossing is going to resist the ink that we're trying to apply to it. And as I said, we're going to apply that using the blending brushes. And so I've got one of those. I'm going to start with Petunia Pop because that's our color of choice. And I absolutely love how the ribbon, the cardstock, the ink, everything matches exactly. That's been like my favorite thing about Stampin' Up, like ever since I started, is that color coordination. And the fact that if I was to buy Petunia Pop today and buy it 2 years from now, it's always going to be that color. You don't have to worry about dye lots and, you know, all that silly stuff. Okay, so I just put my finger on the top of the blending brush and I kind of swirled it around on the top of the pad to pick some up. Now, when you first go down with it, it's a little harsh. And so I kind of start on my paper, my scrap, and then I swirl onto my project. So you can see how it's nice and smooth as I came onto my project, whereas that harsh kind of first touch is over here on my scrap paper. That's the most important thing I try to teach people when I'm teaching them about blending, is to try to not get that one little spot onto our project. It's much better to have that on the scrap paper. And then I'm swirling one direction and then I'm turning around and swirling the other direction. So it's kind of getting it both directions because it's going to be a little darker on the edge, which is another reason why I like to cut the pieces before blending them, because then I get it on the edge. I don't have that white edge after I cut them. Okay, so there's our one flower, and then I'm going to grab the other flower, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to hold our finger on the top, do a little bit of swirling off on the paper and onto the project. Swirl in both directions. And there we go. Isn't that pretty? And it was so quick and so easy. You know, and we've done that emboss resist for years, and I still like to do it because I do it with some stamps that I have. I mean, it's beautiful with the beautiful butterfly. I've done it with the honeycomb that's in the Be My Valentine, even maybe a sailboat, you know, do that on white, you know, swirl blue over it. So there's just kind of a white ship in the background. There's like so many pretty things you can do with it. Okay, next I'm going to do the leaves. Yeah, that is leaves. So for that, I'm going to bring in the green brush. You can see I have one I use for purples, one I use for blue, one I use for greens. And you know, they're pretty clean, you know, after you've used them. They're not real dark. So I can change my green and it's not going to affect it too much. And these I'm going to do Granny Apple Green. So I'm bringing that one in. Again, swirling on the pad, tapping on my scrap paper. Ooh, look at how harsh. See, that's why I do that. Okay. Okay, that's going to be our inside. And it looks like this I actually might have done lemon lime twist when I made my example. Let's see what this looks like. So we're going to kind of clean off our brush by just swirling it around. And then I'm going to pick up some color. And we're going to come back to our swirling. Oh yeah, I like that better. That's a little brighter. So I mean, I'm going to put the darker one on the inside. I don't think anybody's really going to notice the difference in that. There's a slight difference. So from the inside to the outside, I don't think they'll notice. But because I work with these colors all the time, I notice. So another one of my wonky quirks. Does anybody else like go into a store and spot something and then call it by Stampin' Up colors? You know, you walk in, you say, oh, that blouse is, you know, pretty and pink, and that pair of pants over there is Misty Moonlight. And so, you know, it took me years, it's so silly, to figure out that every color that Stampin' Up makes, Blackberry Bliss, Strawberry Slush, Old Olive, they're all the same letter for the first and the second word of the color. Did anybody else like miss that for years? It was so silly when I finally figured it out. I don't know why I didn't see it before. Or was that just me? If you're interested in that glue gun, I do have that listed. There's a link, an affiliate link, where I get a little bit of a thank you from my sweet Petunia for recommending that to you. And it's on my website under the shop and craft room favorites. So if you're looking for where to get one of those, that's where it came from. Okay, let's go ahead and do the stamping. I'm just stamping the one word of thanks. I'm leaving the inside blank. I do sell my finished cards, and I have a lady who often buys like 50 thank you notes at a time, and she likes the inside blank. So sometimes when I'm making cards for my lives, I make them so that I can include them with her little pack that she buys from me of her finished cards. So if you're interested, I'd love to like pull together a pack of cards. I sell them for like $3 a piece. And I can include fun folds, so you would have kind of some samples if you're interested, or just need a bunch of, Christmas cards or something. I am actually drowning in cards over here. I normally do more craft fairs than I've done lately, and so I have like so many left over. Okay. Looks like this has a little bit of a rough edge where it didn't cut real clean. So that means I need to go and sharpen my punch. And to sharpen a punch, all you need to do is take some aluminum foil, and then you're going to fold it up several times, and then you're going to just punch through the aluminum foil. You can also use empty aluminum cans. You can punch through those. I know it sounds kind of weird, but the punching through the metal is what's going to sharpen your punches. Alrighty. Now we can start assembling our card. See how quick and easy this was? We're like 15 minutes into this and we're almost finished. Okay, again, because I'm going to do a little bit of wiggling, I'm going to go back to my liquid glue because I want to be able to wobble them around. So I'm going to start on the outside edge, and I'm going to try to just make my borders around here even, so that my side border and this border, they're all the same size. Okay, then I'm going to come to the opposite side and do the same thing. I'm also making sure that my leaves are growing in upright. Okay, is anybody else going to maybe take us up on that awesome deal they have going on right now for the sign up? You can get $90 worth of free Stampin' Up product by buying our starter kit this month. And it's a starter kit because if you want to go out there and make some money, absolutely, I would love to help you build a small business with this. But if you just want to be a happy shopper and get the discount, there's that option too, where you can just enjoy the fact that you're getting a really big discount on some Stampin' Up product. Okay, so again, I did this in liquid glue so that I could wiggle them around and kind of make my spaces even in the middle. And normally you can slide them. I do too much talking and needed to lift a little. But then we're going to just stick this little strip as just kind of an accent piece that's going to make the outside match the inside. Again, I want to make sure my leaves are growing upright. And I do tend to usually make these a little long because I'd rather have it too long than too short. If it was, oh, and I did it perfect. But if it was a little too long, all you need to do is flip it over and cut from the back side. Okay, then we can, let's see. I'm going to insert this in the inside. Okay, and then I'm going to stick our sentiment right here on the front. But I wanted to pop it up a little bit on dimensionals. And number one, I'm doing that for the dimension, because, you know, we love to put a little dimension on our cards. It gives it some interest. But the second reason that I'm popping it up on dimensionals is that's going to allow me to run my ribbon through the back. And I can tape this onto here. And the fact that the dimensionals are there kind of gives it a track to run in, if that makes sense, so that there's no bump in the middle. If I had put this down flat and then I ran ribbon behind it, there's a chance that the ribbon might cause a bump in the cardstock. Okay, but this dimension is going to give it so that it doesn't. Okay, so we can just play around with that and put it where we want it. And we can do that by just popping off those dimensional backings. Oops, stuck to my finger. Okay. And there we go. There is our thank you card with the Emboss Resist technique, using that Irresistible Designs. Yes, you could do quite a few Christmas things with this. You would, it would be great with that, this one. That could be very Christmassy if you did alternates of red and green. Very cool. Absolutely could do that. You could even stamp. Like I said, you could do your stamping and heat embossing, but that wouldn't be really quick, which is what you mentioned. So I'll stop with that. Monday, remember what day of the week it is, we're going to do a little money holder. And I'm actually going to make two. I've got one in my mind that I want to do with the wildflower birthday. But this would hold cash or a check. We make so many gift card holders that we forget that we can also gift cash. And so I'm going to make this cute little belly band wrapped money holder using some Christmas paper, and then I'm going to make another one using some birthday paper. So Carol Sue is asking what's in the kit. When you get the starter kit, you actually pick out what you want. So you get to choose $125 worth of product of your choice, and then pay the $35 and have free shipping. And then you have the discount of at least 20% off through the end of April, because you have your first full quarter, which is going to be January through March, to make your quota. And if you don't, you have what we call a pending month, which would be April. So you would get to order early for a lot of our online releases for the January to April mini catalog, and possibly the annual catalog. If that's going to still come out in May, we'll probably have our pre-order in April. So there's some really great chances that you can get discounts all the way through the new catalog. The other thing is that there's another option where you could get $189 worth of product for $99. Now, percentage wise, it's not that big of a discount as the $35 for $99. But if you're looking to get the cut and emboss machine, that's how you can get it in your kit. Is you would choose the cut and emboss machine and then another, I don't know, $49 worth of product for your kit, and then you would be able to buy your additional product with the 20% off discount. And then you also become part of my team, which means that you would get better access to me, more free tutorials. We do a project together every month. It's awesome. And you get to be part of not only my team, but also Mary Fish's team, the Stampin' Pretty Pals. So you kind of get to double dip a little bit there. So it's a great option. And if you want to talk to me about it, I'm more than happy to share. I would love to tell you more about it. So anyway, thank you for being here and for sharing my Emboss Resist technique to make this really super cute thank you card. Thanks so much. Bye.